Part 1. The Myth of Terra. The council chamber floated in the void of space, a massive ring of metal and glass that housed the leaders of 12 different species. Inside, the air was thick with tension. High Counselor Vex, his scales gleaming under the artificial lights, slammed his clawed hand against the table. "Another world has fallen," he announced, his voice carrying across the silent chamber. "The Vorthak swarm has consumed Talara 9. 3 billion souls gone in 48 hours. The other counselors shifted in their seats. Some had fur, others had smooth skin or crystalline bodies. All of them wore the same expression of fear and helplessness. The Vorthak had been eating their way through the outer colonies for 6 months now. Nothing they tried seemed to work. "How many does that make?" asked Counselor Prexis, her 6 eyes blinking in sequence. 17 worlds, Vex replied. 17 worlds consumed. Their populations absorbed into the swarm. We are losing this war. In the corner of the chamber, a young aide named Cora was reviewing ancient files. She had been searching through the oldest databases, looking for anything that might help them fight the Vorthak. Most of it was useless. Stories and myths from thousands of years ago. But one file kept appearing in her searches, tagged with a strange word. "Human. Counselor Vex," she called out, her voice small in the vast chamber. "I found something. An old record from 2,000 years ago." Vex turned his massive head toward her. "What is it?" "It mentions a species called humans. It says they were fierce warriors who could adapt to any situation. According to this, they once helped the early coalition fight off an invasion." Several counselors laughed. Prexis waved a dismissive hand. "That is just a legend, child. The humans are a myth, a story we tell our young to inspire them. They never existed. But the records are corrupted data from the old archives," Vex interrupted. "Focus on real solutions, not fairy tales." Cora sat back down, but she kept the file open on her screen. Something about it felt real. The descriptions were too detailed, too specific to be just a story. Far away, at the edge of known space, something extraordinary was happening. A shimmer appeared in the darkness between stars, like heat waves rising from hot ground. Then slowly a ship materialized out of nothing. It was massive, nearly 2 kilometers long, with sleek lines and strange symbols marked on its hull. The symbols spelled out a name in an ancient language: Soul's Pride. On the bridge of the ship, Commander Dewan stood with his hands clasped behind his back. He was tall for a human, with short dark hair and eyes that had seen too much war. Around him, his crew worked at their stations with practiced efficiency. "Status report," he said calmly. Captain Hana looked up from her navigation console. She was younger than Dewan, with sharp features and quick fingers that danced across the holographic displays. "We have successfully crossed the barrier, Commander. All stealth systems are functioning. The Coalition has no idea we are here." "Good. How long until we reach their central command?" 3 hours at current speed," Dewan nodded. He had been waiting for this moment for 10 years. Humanity had been hiding behind an advanced barrier for 2,000 years, cut off from the rest of the galaxy. They had watched from the shadows as the Coalition grew and prospered. They had seen wars come and go, and they had prepared, but now something had changed. The Vorthak swarm was different from any threat the Coalition had faced before. Dewan had been studying them for months, ever since human long-range sensors detected their presence. The Vorthak did not conquer worlds. They consumed them, turning every living thing into part of their hive mind. If they were not stopped, they would eventually reach Earth. Behind Dewan, Ambassador Tae-min entered the bridge. He was older than the others, with gray hair and the patient eyes of a career diplomat. "Commander, are you certain about this? Revealing ourselves after all this time. It could change everything." "It will change everything," Dewan agreed. "But we cannot hide forever. The Coalition needs our help whether they know it or not. They might not accept it. The records of humanity were deliberately erased from their databases. Someone wanted us forgotten. Then we will remind them why we were worth remembering." Lieutenant Jiwoo, the tactical officer, spoke up from her station. She was the youngest member of the senior crew, barely 25, but she had graduated top of her class at the military academy. "Commander, we are detecting heavy Coalition fleet movements. It looks like they are preparing for another battle." Dewan moved to stand beside her console, studying the tactical display. Red markers showed Coalition ships gathering near a world called Nexus Prime. Blue markers showed the approaching Vorthak forces. There were so many blue markers. "They are going to lose," Jiwoo said quietly. Their weapons are not effective against Vorthak bioarmor. Their tactics are too rigid. They will be slaughtered. Not if we help them, Day One replied. He returned to the center of the bridge and straightened his uniform. Open a broadcast channel. All frequencies. I want everyone in the coalition to hear this message. Hana's fingers moved quickly. Channel open, Commander. Day One took a breath, then spoke clearly and firmly. This is Commander Day One of the Terran vessel Soul's Pride. We are transmitting on all coalition frequencies. Humanity requests permission to assist in your fight against the Vorthak swarm. We have been monitoring your situation and believe we can help. We await your response. He nodded to Hana, who closed the channel. Now they could only wait. Back in the council chamber, alarms suddenly blared. Cora jumped in her seat as her console lit up with warnings. Counselor Vex, we are receiving a transmission. It is coming from empty space, right at our border. What do you mean, empty space? Vex demanded. There is nothing there on our sensors, but the transmission is real. And it mentions humans. The chamber erupted in confused voices. Prexis stood up, her body trembling. This must be a trick. The Vorthak trying to confuse us. The signal is not Vorthak, Cora insisted. It is using old coalition protocols. Protocols from 2,000 years ago. Vex stared at the main display as Cora played the message. The voice was calm and confident, speaking in perfect galactic standard despite a slight accent that no one had heard in millennia. Impossible, Vex whispered. But even as he said it, something new appeared on the sensors. A massive ship, suddenly visible where before there had been nothing. The technology required for that kind of stealth was beyond anything the Coalition possessed. Prexis moved closer to the display, her eyes wide. By the old stars. They are real. The humans are real. Vex felt something he had not felt in a long time, hope, but it was mixed with fear. The ancient files had been vague about why humanity disappeared. Some said they had destroyed themselves in war. Others claimed they had been exiled for being too dangerous. What if they were both wrong? What if humanity had simply chosen to leave, and now they had chosen to return? Send a response, Vex ordered. Grant them permission to dock at Central Command. Under heavy guard. I want to know who these humans really are and what they want from us. As the message was sent, Vex looked at the image of the human ship on the display. It was beautiful and terrible at the same time, like a predator waiting to strike. The humans had been a legend for 2,000 years. Now the legend was at their doorstep, offering help against an enemy that seemed unstoppable. Vex did not know if he should be grateful or terrified. Perhaps he thought it was wise to be both. Part 2. First Contact Protocols. The docking bay of Central Command Station was crowded with soldiers. Every species in the Coalition had sent representatives, their weapons ready, their eyes fixed on the massive airlock door. High Counselor Vex stood at the front, flanked by his personal guard. His scales were raised slightly, a sign of his nervousness. Remember, he said to the soldiers around him, these humans may look peaceful, but we know nothing about them. Stay alert. The airlock hissed and began to open. A ramp extended from the Soul's Pride into the station. For a moment, nothing happened. Then, figures began to emerge from the ship. Commander Day One walked down the ramp first, his military boots clicking on the metal. Behind him came Captain Hana, Ambassador Taemin, and a dozen human soldiers in dark uniforms. They moved with precision and confidence, their eyes taking in everything around them. The Coalition soldiers stared. The humans looked ordinary. They had 2 arms, 2 legs, a head. They were bipedal, like many Coalition species, but there was something in the way they moved, something that suggested controlled power. Vex stepped forward, trying to appear larger than he was. I am High Counselor Vex of the Galactic Coalition. You claim to be human? Day One stopped a few meters away and offered a slight bow of respect. I am Commander Day One. This is Captain Hana and Ambassador Taemin. We have come to offer our assistance. Your assistance, Vex repeated slowly. Forgive my doubt, Commander, but humanity has been considered a myth for 2 millennia. How do we know you are what you claim to be? Taemin stepped forward, his diplomatic training evident in his smooth movements. We understand your skepticism, Counselor. We have brought historical records, genetic data, and technological samples that prove our identity. We are willing to submit to any verification process you require. And in return, Prexis asked from behind Vex, what do you want from us? To help, Day One said simply. The Vortex swarm threatens all life in this galaxy. If they are not stopped, they will eventually reach human space. We would rather fight them here alongside you than face them alone later. Vex studied the human commander's face. There was no deception there, only sincerity. But sincerity could be faked. Very well. You will be granted limited access to our station, but I warn you, Commander, any hostile action will be met with overwhelming force. Understood, Day One replied. We expected nothing less. Over the next several hours, the humans were escorted through Central Command. Dr. Subin, a human xenobiologist, met with Coalition scientists and shared detailed information about human biology. They were fascinated and horrified in equal measure. Human bones were incredibly dense. Their muscles contained redundant systems that prevented fatigue. Their immune systems could adapt to new diseases within days. Your species is built for survival, one scientist observed. It is like you were designed to endure. Subin smiled sadly. We come from a harsh world. Earth taught us to be resilient or die. Meanwhile, engineer Kyung-soo demonstrated human technology to Coalition military leaders. He showed them holographic displays of the Soul's Pride systems, quantum fold engines that could move faster than Coalition drives, stealth fields that bent sensor waves around the ship, plasma weapons that could cut through nearly any material. One Coalition admiral shook his head in disbelief. This technology is generations ahead of ours. How is this possible? We had 2,000 years to develop in isolation, Kyung-soo explained. While you built an empire of many species, we focused on perfecting our technology. We knew that when we returned to the galaxy, we would need every advantage. Or you would need to conquer it, the admiral said suspiciously. Kyung-soo met his gaze steadily. If we wanted to conquer you, Admiral, we would not have announced our presence. We would have simply done it. The words hung in the air, uncomfortable but true. Back in the council chamber, the debate raged. Some counselors argued that the humans should be embraced as allies. Others insisted they were a threat that should be eliminated while they were still few in number. Vex listened to all of them, his mind working through the possibilities. Finally, Counselor Prexus spoke up. There is a simple solution. We test them. If they are truly as capable as they claim, let them prove it. We challenge their best warrior to face our champions in combat simulation. If they win, we consider their offer. If they lose, they leave our space. Murmurs of agreement rippled through the chamber. Vex considered it. Very well. Inform the humans of our decision. When the challenge was presented to Daewon, he did not hesitate. We accept. Lieutenant Jiwoo will represent humanity. Taemin looked concerned. Commander, are you certain? Jiwoo is skilled, but she is young. She is exactly what we need, Daewon replied. The Coalition expects us to send our biggest, strongest warrior. Jiwoo will show them that humans win through adaptability, not just strength. The combat arena was a circular chamber with a hard floor and energy barriers containing the fighting space. Thousands of Coalition citizens gathered to watch, either in person or through broadcasts across the station. The humans had become the subject of intense curiosity and speculation. Jiwoo entered the arena wearing light combat armor. She was small compared to many Coalition species, barely 160 centimeters tall. Her hair was tied back in a tight braid, and her eyes were calm and focused. Her first opponent was a Krellian warrior, a massive creature with 4 arms and thick, armored hide. He stood 3 meters tall and weighed over 300 kilograms. The crowd cheered as he entered the arena. The match began. The Krellian charged forward with surprising speed, his 4 arms reaching to grapple Jiwoo. But she was not there. She had already moved, rolling to the side and coming up behind him. Before he could turn, she struck at the joints in his leg armor with precise kicks. The Krellian roared and spun, but Jiwoo was already moving again. For 3 minutes, she danced around the larger opponent, striking at weak points, using his momentum against him. Finally, she leaped onto his back and applied a chokehold that cut off blood flow to his brain. The Krellian collapsed unconscious. The crowd was silent with shock. Her second opponent was a Siltek, a species known for their incredible reaction speed and venomous claws. The Siltek moved like lightning, his strikes almost too fast to see. But Jiwoo matched him, dodging and blocking with movements that seemed impossible. She had studied Siltek anatomy during the voyage and knew exactly where their nerve clusters were located. One well-placed strike to the Siltek's shoulder paralyzed his arm. Another to his leg dropped him to the ground. The third opponent was a seasoned coalition Marine who had fought in dozens of battles. He was careful, strategic, and experienced. The fight lasted longer than the others, with both fighters trading blows and techniques. But in the end, Jiwoo's unpredictability won. She feinted high, struck low, and used a throw that sent the Marine crashing to the ground. She pinned him before he could recover. As Jiwoo stood in the center of the arena, breathing hard but victorious, the crowd erupted. Some cheered, some shouted in anger, but all of them were talking about the human warrior who had defeated 3 champions. Vex descended to the arena floor and approached Jiwoo. "You fight well, human. Better than well. You fight like someone who has spent their entire life preparing for war." Jiwoo bowed respectfully. "Every human learns to fight, counselor. Our history taught us that peace must be protected by those willing to stand against chaos." Vex looked at her for a long moment, then nodded slowly. "Very well. The Coalition will accept your offer of alliance, but it will be temporary until the Vorthak threat is eliminated. After that, we will reassess. That is all we ask," Jiwoo replied. As the humans left the arena, Daewon placed a hand on Jiwoo's shoulder. "Well done, Lieutenant. Thank you, Commander. But I think we just made some powerful enemies among the Coalition. We also made allies," Hana added. "Look." She pointed to a group of Coalition soldiers who were approaching. Their leader, a grizzled veteran, extended his hand in the human gesture of respect that he had learned from the broadcasts. "You fight with honor, human. I would be proud to stand beside you in battle." Jiwoo shook his hand firmly. "And I beside you." But even as the moment of connection happened, alarms began to blare throughout the station. Korra's voice came over the intercom, urgent and frightened. "All personnel to battle stations. Long-range sensors have detected a massive Vorthak fleet approaching Nexus Prime system. Estimated time of arrival, 72 hours. Daewon's expression hardened. "It seems we will get to prove ourselves sooner than expected." Vex looked at the human commander with new eyes. "Can you help us win this battle?" "We can try," Daewon replied. "But you need to trust us completely, no half measures." Vex thought of the 17 worlds already lost. He thought of the billions of lives consumed by the swarm. Then he thought of the small humans standing before him, who had just defeated 3 of their best warriors. Sometimes, he realized, you had to trust the legend. Part 3. The Battle of Nexus Prime. The space around Nexus Prime looked like a gathering storm. Coalition warships filled the void, thousands of them, from massive battle cruisers to small fighter craft. Their hulls gleamed under the light of the system's twin stars. It should have been an impressive sight, a show of overwhelming force. But Daewon knew better. He stood on the bridge of the Soul's Pride watching the tactical displays. Around him, his crew worked in focused silence. Through the view screen, he could see the rest of the human fleet arriving. 47 ships, each one bristling with weapons and technology the Coalition had never seen. "They look so few," Captain Hana said quietly. "Compared to the Coalition fleet, numbers are not everything," Daewon replied. "One human ship is worth 50 of theirs. We just need to prove it." Fleet Admiral Sang-woo's face appeared on the communication screen. He was older than Daewon, with gray hair and scars that spoke of a lifetime in service. "All human vessels are in position, Commander. We are ready to begin." "Good. Link our tactical systems with theirs. I want full coordination." "Commander," Sang-woo said, hesitation in his voice. "Are you certain about your plan?" "Ramming the enemy. It is a last resort." "Let us hope it does not come to that, Admiral. But if it does, we do what we must." The Coalition Command Center had been set up on one of the larger battle cruisers. Vex stood at the center, surrounded by his admirals and tactical officers. When Daewon's hologram appeared beside him, several officers stepped back instinctively. "Commander," Vex greeted, "your fleet is in position." "We are ready, but I need you to listen to my strategy, Counselor. The Vorthak fight differently than any enemy you have faced. They are a hive mind. They adapt to your tactics in real time. If you fight them the way you usually fight, you will lose." One of the Coalition admirals, a proud Felvor with golden fur, bristled at the suggestion. "We have been fighting wars for 1,000 years, human. We do not need lessons from—" "You have lost 17 worlds in 6 months," Daewon interrupted coldly. "So yes, Admiral, you do need lessons. Will you listen, or will you add Nexus Prime to that list?" The Admiral fell silent, anger radiating from him. But Vex raised a hand. "Speak, Commander. What do you propose?" Your fleet will form a defensive sphere around Nexus Prime. You will be the anvil holding the line. My fleet will be the hammer striking at their weak points. The Vorthak will focus on your larger numbers, which gives us the opportunity to hit their coordination nodes. These are specialized ships that direct the swarm's movements. Destroy them and the swarm becomes confused. How do you know about these coordination nodes? Vex asked. We have been studying the Vorthak for months. We know how they think, how they move. Trust us. Before Vex could respond, the sensors began screaming warnings. Lieutenant Jiwoo's voice came through clearly. Vorthak fleet detected. They are entering the system now. The view screen shifted and everyone in the command center stared in horror. The Vorthak fleet was enormous. A dark mass of organic ships that looked like they had been grown rather than built. Tentacles writhed on their hulls. Eyes blinked along their surfaces. And there were so many of them, thousands upon thousands, like a plague of locusts descending on a field. By the stars, Vex whispered. Hold your positions, Daewon commanded. Remember the plan. Let them come to us. The Vorthak fleet moved forward like a wave of living darkness. The coalition ships opened fire first, their energy weapons lighting up the void. Blue and green beams struck the Vorthak ships, but the damage was minimal. The organic hulls absorbed most of the energy, healing almost as quickly as they were hurt. Our weapons are not effective, one coalition captain reported, panic in his voice. Continue firing, Vex ordered. All ships maintain defensive formation. The Vorthak returned fire with bioplasma weapons that burned through shields like acid through paper. Coalition ships began to explode, their crews lost in bursts of fire and debris. The defensive sphere started to crack under the pressure. Now, Commander? Sang-Woo asked urgently. Now, Daewon confirmed. All human vessels attack pattern Delta. Focus on the coordination nodes. The human fleet suddenly accelerated, moving faster than the coalition ships could track. They cut through the Vorthak formation like knives through flesh. Plasma lances, weapons that focused energy into needle-thin beams, pierced through Vorthak hulls with devastating effect. Antimatter torpedoes created explosions that vaporized entire bioships. Wing leader Minji commanded the Talon Squadron, humanity's elite fighter group. Her voice came through the communication channel, calm despite the chaos. Talon leader to all fighters. Target the large vessels with the pulsing membranes. Those are the coordination nodes. Make every shot count. The human fighters danced through the battle, performing maneuvers that seemed to defy physics. They spun, rolled, and dove with precision that made coalition pilots gasp in disbelief. Minji herself destroyed 3 coordination nodes in as many minutes, her missiles striking with perfect accuracy. The effect was immediate. Sections of the Vorthak fleet began to slow, their movements becoming uncoordinated. Some ships collided with each other. Others drifted aimlessly, cut off from the hive mind's commands. It is working, Vex shouted. All coalition vessels focus fire on the confused sections. The battle raged for hours. Space was filled with weapons fire, explosions, and the dying screams of ships from both sides. Chief Engineer Bora worked frantically on the Soul's Pride, keeping the weapons systems running despite the constant stress. Commander, we are at 80% weapon capacity, she reported. I can push it to 90, but any more and we risk overload. Do what you can, Bora. We need every advantage. But then something changed. A massive shape emerged from the back of the Vorthak fleet. It was a dreadnought, 5 times larger than any other ship on the battlefield. Its hull was covered in armor plating grown from compressed bone. Dozens of eyes dotted its surface, each one tracking different targets. What is that thing? Hana whispered. The dreadnought fired a beam of concentrated bioenergy that cut through 3 coalition battlecruisers like they were paper. Then it extended massive tentacles that grabbed onto other coalition ships, pulling them close. The tentacles pierced the hulls and the ships began to change, their metal transforming into organic matter. The Vorthak were assimilating them. We are losing ships to that thing, a coalition admiral screamed. Someone stop it. Daewon watched the dreadnought with cold calculation. It was too large for normal weapons, too well armored for missiles. There was only one way to stop it. Captain Hana, he said quietly. Evacuate all non-essential personnel from the Soul's Pride. Have them transferred to the other human ships. Hana turned to face him, her eyes wide with understanding. Commander, no. There has to be another way. There is not. That dreadnought will destroy the coalition fleet if we do not stop it now. Prepare for evacuation. Sir, I refuse to. That is an order, Captain. Day One's voice was firm but not harsh. You are a good officer, Hana. The fleet will need you after this battle. Go. Tears filled Hana's eyes, but she saluted and began ordering the evacuation. Within minutes, escape pods were launching from the Soul's Pride. Day One watched them go, feeling the weight of what he was about to do. He opened a channel to Vex. Counselor, I am going to ram the dreadnought. It will create an opening. Have your ships concentrate all firepower on that opening. Understood? Commander, you cannot. I can and I will. It has been an honor, Counselor. Day One out. He cut the communication before Vex could argue. Then he turned to Engineer Kyung-Soo, who had refused to evacuate. Kyung-Soo, I need you to activate the Helios array. Kyung-Soo's hands moved across his console. The prototype? Commander, we have never tested it in combat conditions. First time for everything. Send the activation codes to all human ships. Tell them to synchronize their main weapons with ours. On my mark, they will fire as one. The Soul's Pride turned toward the dreadnought engines burning at full power. The massive Vorthak ship noticed the approach and began to turn its weapons toward them. Day One gripped the command chair and watched the distance close. 5 kilometers. 4. 3. All human ships. Fire the Helios array now. Every human vessel in the fleet fired their main weapon simultaneously. The energy beams converged on a single point, channeled through the Soul's Pride as it struck the dreadnought. The combined power was like a miniature star being born. The dreadnought's armor began to glow, then melt, then vaporize. The Soul's Pride smashed into the dreadnought at full speed. The impact created an explosion that lit up the entire battlefield. When the light faded, both ships were gone, replaced by an expanding cloud of debris. But the opening had been created. The dreadnought's destruction sent a shockwave through the Vorthak hive mind. For a crucial moment, every Vorthak ship in the system went still, stunned by the loss of their largest node. Now, Vex roared. All ships, full assault. The Coalition fleet, inspired by the sacrifice they had just witnessed, surged forward with renewed determination. Human ships continued to target coordination nodes while Coalition vessels hammered the confused Vorthak ships with everything they had. Minji's fighters dove into the enemy formation, her voice steady as she guided her pilots. Part 4. Myths Become Legends. The memorial service was held in the largest gathering hall on Central Command Station. Thousands attended in person, while billions more watched from across Coalition space. At the center of the hall stood a holographic display showing the face of Commander Day One, frozen in a moment of calm determination. Captain Hana stood at the podium, her uniform crisp and perfect despite the exhaustion in her eyes. She had not slept since the battle. Commander Day One believed in 3 things, she said, her voice carrying across the silent hall. Honor, duty, and the belief that all life was worth protecting. He gave his life for those beliefs. He gave his life for people he had known for only days. That is what it means to be human. In the crowd, Vex listened with his head bowed. Beside him stood Ambassador Taemin, who had spent the past week in endless meetings, trying to turn the sacrifice at Nexus Prime into a lasting alliance. It was exhausting work, made harder by the political divisions within the Coalition. After the service, Taemin found himself in yet another council session. The chamber was divided. Some councilors wanted to grant humanity full membership immediately. Others argued for caution, even expulsion. They are too dangerous, insisted Councilor Drax, a tall being with smooth blue skin. Look at what one ship did. Imagine if they turned that power against us. They saved us, countered Councilor Prexus. Or have you forgotten the 17 worlds we lost before they arrived? And how many more will we lose if we trust them too much? Drex shot back. We know nothing of their true intentions. Taemin raised his hand, requesting permission to speak. Vex nodded, and the chamber fell silent. Councilors, I understand your concerns, but I ask you to consider this. Humanity did not need to reveal itself. We could have remained hidden behind our barrier, safe and isolated. Instead, we chose to help. Commander Day One chose to die for you. What more proof do you need? Pretty words, Drex said. But words are easy. Actions tell the truth. Then judge us by our actions, Taemin replied calmly. We are here, fighting alongside you, bleeding alongside you. What else would you have us do? The debate continued for hours, going in circles. Tae Min remained patient, answering every question, addressing every concern. It was slow, frustrating work. But slowly, minds began to change. Meanwhile, across coalition space, humanity was becoming a phenomenon. News of the battle had spread like wildfire. The image of the Soul's Pride ramming the Vorthak dreadnought had been captured by a dozen different sensors and was being broadcast everywhere. People talked about the humans in markets, in homes, in military barracks. Dr. Subin found himself overwhelmed with requests from coalition medical facilities. They wanted to learn human techniques for treating Vorthak infections. She worked 18-hour days, traveling from station to station, teaching what she knew. On one particular station, she treated a young Krellian soldier who had been infected during a Vorthak raid. The infection was spreading through his system, turning his cells into Vorthak biomatter. Coalition doctors had given up on him. Subin studied the scans, then prepared a treatment based on human antiviral protocols. This will hurt, she warned the soldier, but it will kill the infection. The treatment worked. 3 days later, the soldier was recovering, the infection completely eliminated. Word of the miracle spread. Soon, Subin was training coalition, doctors in human medical techniques, sharing knowledge that saved hundreds of lives. Lieutenant Jiwoo had a different experience. After her victory in the arena, she had become something of a celebrity among coalition soldiers. They wanted to learn from her, to understand how humans fought. She found herself teaching combat courses on military bases across the sector. Coalition soldiers came from all species, all backgrounds. Some were eager to learn. Others were skeptical, thinking that human techniques would not work for their bodies. Jiwoo proved them wrong. She adapted her teaching to each species, finding ways to use their natural strengths. She taught a Felvor soldier how to use his superior hearing to predict enemy movements. She showed a Siltek how to combine her natural speed with human tactical thinking. Fighting is not about being the strongest, Jiwoo explained during one session. It is about being smart, adaptable, and never giving up. These are human traits, but they can be learned by anyone. One of her students, a veteran coalition sergeant named Korvax, approached her after class. "I did not believe the stories about your people," he admitted. "I thought they were exaggerations. But after training with you, I understand now. You humans are not stronger than us, you are just more stubborn." Jiwoo smiled. "That is probably true. Humanity has faced extinction dozens of times in our history. We survived because we refused to quit, even when quitting made sense. But not everyone was impressed by humanity. On several worlds, protests erupted. People held signs demanding that the humans be expelled from coalition space. They feared that humanity would try to dominate them, to take over now that they had proven their power. On the colony world of Thexus 7, a human supply ship was attacked by a mob. Private Dong Hyun, a young soldier who had been assigned to guard duty, found himself surrounded by angry protesters. They threw rocks and bottles, shouting insults. Dong Hyun did not draw his weapon. Instead, he stood calmly, his hands raised in a gesture of peace. When a rock struck his helmet, cracking the visor, he simply removed it and faced the crowd with his bare face. "I understand you are afraid," he said loudly. "You do not know us. You think we are monsters who will hurt you, but look at me. I am just a person like you. I have a family back on Earth. I have friends. I have dreams. I came here not to conquer but to help, to protect. If you want me to leave, I will leave. But please do not judge all of humanity by your fear." The crowd fell silent. One by one, the protesters lowered their signs. An elderly Prexian woman stepped forward, tears in her eyes. "My grandson died on Talara 9, she said. "The Vorthak took him. I have been angry for so long. But you came to fight the Vorthak, to stop them from taking more children. I am sorry." Dong Hyun helped her sit down, offering her water from his canteen. The moment was captured by news drones and broadcast across the galaxy. The image of a human soldier showing kindness to someone who had attacked him became one of the most shared pieces of media in Coalition history. But while hearts and minds were slowly being won, the war continued. The Vorthak had been pushed back at Nexus Prime, but they were not defeated. Attacks continued along the frontier, each one more desperate than the last. Fleet Admiral Sang Woo coordinated the defense, splitting the human fleet to cover multiple systems. It was exhausting work. Every day brought new reports of Vorthak movements, new battles to fight. The humans were proving their worth, but they were stretched thin. Captain Hana, who had been promoted to take Day One's position, found herself commanding 3 human vessels in the defense of a mining colony. The Vorthak attacked with a medium-sized fleet, clearly testing the defenses. Hana's ships fought alongside coalition vessels, their coordination improving with each engagement. After 16 hours of constant fighting, the Vorthak withdrew. Hana's ships had suffered damage but no losses. She stood on her bridge, looking at the holographic display of the battle, and wondered how long they could keep this up. "Captain," her communication officer called out, "we are receiving a priority message from Intelligence Officer Jiwoo. She says she has discovered something important about the Vorthak." Hana pulled up the message on her screen. As she read it, her eyes widened. Jiwoo had been analyzing captured Vorthak ships and had discovered something incredible. The Vorthak were not truly a hive mind. They were controlled by a central nexus, a massive organic computer located deep in Vorthak space. If that nexus was destroyed, the entire swarm would collapse. It was the breakthrough they needed. But the nexus was protected by millions of Vorthak ships and was located in a system that had never been successfully scouted. Hana forwarded the message to Sang-woo and Vex, along with her own analysis. Within hours, a meeting was called at Central Command. The war room was packed with coalition admirals, human commanders, and political leaders. Jiwoo stood at the center, presenting her findings on a holographic display. "The nexus is here," she said, pointing to a system deep in red space. "It is the brain of the Vorthak. Destroy it, and we end this war." "Getting there would require a fleet," Sang-woo said. "A large fleet. We would need to fight through countless Vorthak ships. And we would suffer massive casualties," added a coalition admiral. "Unless," Jiwoo countered, "we use a smaller force, a strike team that can slip through their defenses unnoticed." "A suicide mission," Vex said flatly. "Yes," Jiwoo agreed, "but one that could save billions of lives." The room fell silent as everyone processed what was being proposed. Finally, Captain Hana stood up. "I will lead it. I owe Commander Daewon that much." "No," came a voice from the doorway. Everyone turned to see Fleet Admiral Sang-woo entering the room. "I will lead it. This is a mission for the most experienced commander we have." "With respect, Admiral," Hana said. "The fleet needs you here. I can do this." Before they could argue further, Ambassador Taemin spoke up. "Perhaps this decision should not be made in haste. We need time to plan, to prepare." Part 5. We came to fight. The strike force moved through Vorthak space like shadows, 5 ships, small and fast, equipped with the best stealth technology humanity could provide. Fleet Admiral Sang-woo stood on the bridge of the lead vessel, watching the sensor displays with practiced calm. Around him, both human and coalition crew members worked in tense silence. Behind them, hundreds of light years away, a massive coalition fleet was preparing for a diversionary attack. The plan was simple in concept but terrifying in execution. The main fleet would assault the Vorthak border worlds, drawing their forces away from the Nexus. Meanwhile, Sang-woo's strike team would slip through the chaos and destroy the heart of the swarm. "How many Vorthak ships between us and the target?" Sang-woo asked. Lieutenant Jiwoo studied her tactical display. "Based on our scans, approximately 3 million vessels in the surrounding systems. Most are dormant, waiting for commands from the Nexus." 3 million, Captain Hana repeated softly. "And we have 500 soldiers." "Then we will have to be clever," Sang-woo replied. "Remember, we are not here to fight every Vorthak ship. We are here to kill the brain." Behind them, the communication console beeped. The signal was from Admiral Vex, leading the diversionary fleet. "Strike Team Alpha, this is Fleet Command. We are beginning our assault. You have 12 hours before the Vorthak realize what we are doing, and pull forces back to protect the Nexus. Make them count. Understood, Fleet Command, Sang-Woo replied. We will not fail. As the strike force accelerated deeper into enemy territory, they began to see the true horror of the Vorthak. Entire systems had been stripped of life. Planets that once held cities and forests now looked like bare bones picked clean. Some worlds were being converted into breeding grounds for more Vorthak ships, their surfaces covered in pulsing organic matter. Dr. Subin stared at the images with tears in her eyes. So many lives lost. So many worlds destroyed. That is why we are here, Engineer Kyung-soo said quietly. To make sure it stops. The strike force navigated through asteroid fields and dead systems, using every trick they knew to avoid detection. Once they passed within visual range of a Vorthak patrol fleet. The strike team held their breath as the enemy ships drifted past, their sensor sweeps passing over the stealthed vessels without detection. 10 hours into the mission, they reached the outer boundary of the Nexus system. What they saw made even the most hardened veterans pause. The Nexus itself was massive, a structure that looked like a combination of a planet and a living organism. It was covered in neural pathways that glowed with bioelectrical energy. Around it orbited thousands of ships, all connected to the Nexus by pulsing organic cables. That is the most beautiful and terrible thing I have ever seen, Hana whispered. It is the end of our journey, Sang-Woo said. All ships prepare for final approach. Once we enter that system, stealth will not help us. They will know we are there. The 5 ships moved forward as one. For a few precious minutes, nothing happened. Then alarms began to blare across the Vorthak network. The strike force had been detected. Vorthak ships began to swarm toward them like angry insects. The strike force accelerated, weapons firing to clear a path. Explosions lit up the darkness as missiles found their targets. But for every Vorthak ship destroyed, 2 more took its place. We are not going to make it at this rate, one coalition pilot reported, his voice strained. There are too many. All ships focus on forward momentum, Sang-Woo ordered. Do not stop to engage unless necessary. Our target is the Nexus, nothing else. The ships pushed forward, their hulls taking damage from Vorthak bioplasma weapons. One of the coalition vessels took a direct hit to its engines and began to drift. The captain's voice came through, calm despite his situation. Strike team, continue without us. We will hold them off as long as we can. Understood, Sang-Woo said, pain in his voice. Your sacrifice will be remembered. The damaged ship turned back toward the pursuing Vorthak fleet, its remaining weapons blazing. It disappeared in a burst of light, taking dozens of enemy vessels with it. 4 ships remained. They pushed deeper into the system, closer to the Nexus. The organic structure loomed before them, so large it filled their view screens. Strange sounds echoed through their hulls, vibrations that felt alive and malevolent. Prepare landing teams, Sang-Woo ordered. We will need to board the Nexus and plant the charges manually. The ships landed on the surface of the Nexus, their hulls gripping onto the organic surface like parasites. Hatches opened, and soldiers poured out wearing environmental suits. The surface of the Nexus was warm, pulsing with energy. It felt like walking on living flesh. Lieutenant Ji-woo led one team carrying specialized explosives. Dr. Subin went with another group, studying the structure as they moved. Engineer Kyung-soo stayed with his team, setting up a quantum transmitter that would broadcast a virus into the Nexus's neural network. As they moved deeper into the structure, they began to see things that defied understanding. Chambers filled with suspended beings from dozens of species, all connected to the Nexus, their minds feeding it information. Corridors that seemed to shift and change as if the Nexus itself was aware of the intrusion. This thing is alive, Subin said, her voice shaking. Truly alive. It thinks, it feels, and it knows we are here. As if responding to her words, the walls around them suddenly shifted. Vorthak creatures emerged from hidden chambers. Biological warriors designed to protect the Nexus. The soldiers opened fire, but the creatures kept coming. Keep moving, Ji-woo shouted. We are almost at the core. The teams fought their way through corridor after corridor. Soldiers fell, their sacrifice buying time for the others to advance. Coalition and human warriors fought side by side, their differences forgotten in the face of a common enemy. Finally, they reached the core chamber. It was vast, a cathedral of organic technology. At the center floated a massive brain-like structure, connected to thousands of cables that stretched in every direction. This was the heart of the Vorthak, the central intelligence that controlled billions of organisms across the galaxy. Plant the charges, Sang-woo ordered. Kyung-soo, start the virus upload. As the teams moved to comply, the voice suddenly filled the chamber. It was not spoken aloud but projected directly into their minds. Why do you resist? We offer immortality, unity, peace. Sang-woo stepped forward, facing the Nexus. You offer slavery. You consume identity and replace it with obedience. That is not peace. That is extinction. You are weak, divided. You fight among yourselves. We can end that. Join us and become part of something greater than your individual selves. Humanity knows what it means to be divided, Sang-woo replied. We have fought wars among ourselves. We have suffered and struggled. But we have also learned that diversity is strength, that different voices create better solutions. You offer simplicity, but life is complex, and that complexity is worth fighting for. Then you choose death. The Nexus unleashed every defense it had. The floor erupted with tentacles. The walls sprouted weapons. Biological warriors poured into the chamber from every entrance. The strike team fought with desperate courage, knowing that this was the moment that would decide everything. Ji-woo finished planting her charges and activated the timer. 10 minutes. That was all the time they had left. Kyung-soo worked frantically at his console, uploading the virus. It is fighting me, he reported. The Nexus is trying to shut down the transmitter. I need more time. You have 5 minutes, Sang-woo said. Make it work. Captain Hana stood beside Sang-woo, firing her weapon at the approaching creatures. Admiral, we are not all going to make it out of here. I know, Sang-woo said. But some of us will, and that will be enough. As the timer counted down, Kyung-soo made a final adjustment and hit the transmit button. The virus flooded into the Nexus's systems, a cascade of corrupted data that spread like wildfire through its neural pathways. The Nexus screamed, a sound that echoed in every mind in the chamber. It is working, Subin shouted. The virus is disrupting its control. All teams evacuate now, Sang-woo ordered. Get back to the ships! The soldiers ran, fighting every step of the way. Some did not make it. Some chose to stay behind, holding off the Vorthak creatures so others could escape. Their names would be remembered. Ji-woo reached the ship with her team, but when she looked back, she saw Sang-woo still in the core chamber. Admiral, we need to go. Sang-woo stood before the Nexus, watching the countdown timer. 3 minutes. I am staying, he said calmly. Someone needs to make sure these charges detonate properly. Go, Lieutenant. That is an order. Admiral, tell them our story, Ji-woo. Tell them that humanity came to fight and we never stopped fighting. Now go. With tears streaming down her face, Ji-woo sealed the ship's hatch. The 3 remaining vessels lifted off, pulling away from the Nexus as fast as their engines could manage. Inside the core chamber, Sang-woo stood alone. He thought of Earth, of the family he would never see again. He thought of Commander Daewon and all the others who had sacrificed themselves in this war. He thought of the future he was helping to create, a future where humanity and the coalition would stand together against the darkness. The timer reached 0. The explosion was visible from 100 light-years away.